All right, so let's roll for initiative, I guess you could say, and dive into this whole D&D combat thing.
Yeah.
If you've got your friends, you made your characters, and you're ready to face down some enemies,
Right.
don't worry, we've got you.
Absolutely.
We're going to be using the D&D Starter Set Rulebook
That's a great place to start.
as our guide today.
Yeah.
So grab your dice and get ready.
Get ready for adventure.
Yeah.
What's great about combat in D&D is that it's designed to be exciting even for beginners.
Yeah.
It's all about making tactical decisions and then seeing how those play out in the game.
Exactly. And the rulebook lays it out in a clear turn-based structure.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a, I don't know, like a dance-off, but with swords and spells.
Yeah, think of it this way. A round in D&D represents about 6 seconds of intense action.
Okay.
A flurry of blows, spells flying, and everyone scrambling for advantage.
Right. So within each round, every creature,
Right.
from your valiant heroes to the lowliest goblins,
Yeah.
gets a turn to act.
Yeah.
Now, before those turns unfold, we need to figure out who goes first.
Right.
That's where initiative comes in.
Exactly.
Initiative is like a race to see who's the quickest on the draw.
Yeah.
Everyone rolls a d20, adds their dexterity modifier.
Right.
That's a bonus based on your character's dexterity score,
Yes.
and the highest roller wins.
That's right. This keeps things fair.
Yeah.
So even if your character is a lumbering half-orc barbarian, they might still get the jump on a nimble elf rogue if the dice are in their favor.
So pay attention to that dexterity score when you're creating your character.
Right.
It could give you an edge in those crucial opening moments.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what if your party stumbles into an ambush?
Oh, yeah.
That's where surprise comes in.
Surprise adds a whole other layer of suspense and realism to the game.
Yeah.
So imagine your party's creeping through a dark forest when suddenly bandits spring out from behind the trees.
Right. And if no one was trying to be stealthy, they
Yeah.
both spot each other. There's no
Yeah.
surprise.
Right.
But if one side was successfully hidden, things get a lot more interesting.
Exactly. The DM or Dungeon Master compares the hidden side's dexterity check for sneaking with the other side's passive perception, which is a measure of how alert they are even when they're not actively searching.
Yeah.
Whoever fails to notice that threat is surprised.
Right. And being surprised has some serious downsides.
Oh, yeah. A surprised character can't move or take any actions on their first turn.
Oh, wow.
They're basically caught flat-footed, which can be a huge disadvantage in a fight.
Yeah. So remember to think about surprise,
Mhm.
especially if you're the DM running the game.
Absolutely.
It can really lead to some memorable moments.
For sure.
Okay, the ambush is sprung, initiative is rolled.
Right.
It's your turn to shine. What can you do?
This is where D&D combat gets really tactical.
Okay.
You have 2 main things that you can do on your turn. Move and take an action.
Okay, movement's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You can move a distance up to your character speed,
Right?
which you'll find on your character sheet.
Right.
Think of it like your character's running speed, but in the game world.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Actions, though, are where things get interesting.
Yes.
This is where you decide how your character interacts with the world.
Right.
Do you attack a fearsome monster? Do you cast a spell to turn the tide of battle, or maybe try something a little more cunning?
It's up to you.
Let's start with the classic,
Yeah.
attacking.
You choose your target, whether it's a snarling beast, a rival adventurer, or even just a specific weak spot on a wall, and then it's time to see if your attack connects.
Right. This is where we roll the dice.
Yes, an attack roll determines whether your attack hits or misses.
Okay.
You roll a 20-sided die, or D20 for short, and add your attack modifiers.
Okay.
These modifiers come from your character's stats and abilities, like their strength or their dexterity.
So the higher your attack modifier, the more skilled your character is at hitting their target.
Yeah,
Then
but
you compare the total to the target's armor class, or AC.
Right.
The higher the AC, the harder they are to hit.
Yeah, think of it like their toughness or how good they are at dodging. Now, for those heart-stopping moments of fate, critical hits and fumbles.
Yeah.
A natural 20 on the D20 is a critical hit.
It's an automatic success, and you get to deal extra damage,
Nice.
making your enemies truly regret crossing your path.
On the other hand, rolling a natural 1 is a fumble.
Ooh, right.
It's an automatic miss.
Yeah.
And depending on your DM, it might even lead to some hilarious consequences.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe you trip, drop your weapon, or even accidentally hit yourself.
Adds to the fun and the unpredictability.
Yeah, for sure. So let's say your character decides to attack a menacing ogre.
Okay.
You roll your D20, add your attack modifier, and compare it to the ogre's AC.
If your result equals or exceeds the ogre's AC, you hit.
All right.
Nice.
Now comes the satisfying part. Rolling for damage.
Each weapon or spell has its own damage dice.
Okay.
You roll those dice, add your relevant modifiers,
Yeah.
and that's how much damage your target suffers.
Imagine your character swings their sword,
Hmm.
and it connects with the ogre. You roll your damage dice, and the ogre roars in pain as it loses hit points.
That's right. Speaking of hit points,
Yeah.
those are a measure of how much damage your character can take before falling unconscious.
Like a health bar in a video game.
Exactly.
Each time you take damage, you subtract those points from your total, and when you hit 0 hit points, well, things get a little dicey.
We'll save that dramatic moment for the next part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
But for now, let's delve a little deeper into the different types of attacks you can make in D&D combat.
Okay, so we got ranged and melee attacks.
Right. Ranged attacks are all about keeping your distance.
Okay.
Think bows and arrows, spells that shoot bolts of energy, or even just chucking rocks at your enemies.
Right, but ranged attacks have a limited range.
Right. You can't just snipe enemies from across the battlefield.
Yeah.
And if your target is beyond your normal range, you have a disadvantage on the attack roll.
What does that mean?
That means you roll the d20 twice and take the lower result, making it harder to hit.
Oh, okay, so melee attacks are all about getting up close and personal.
Exactly. Think swords, axes, even unarmed strikes like punches and kicks.
Right.
You need to be within arm's reach of your enemy to make a melee attack.
So ranged attackers want to stay at a distance and pepper their foes with arrows or spells, while melee fighters want to close the gap and bring their strength and skill to bear.
That's a constant push and pull.
Yeah, it's really interesting how that dynamic works.
It is.
And that's just the beginning.
Mhm.
There's so much more to explore in the world of D&D combat.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure you like and subscribe to Deep Dive so you don't miss the next part of our adventure.
In the meantime, think about what kind of combat style appeals to you.
Yeah.
Do you prefer the calculated precision of ranged attacks or the visceral thrill of melee combat? We'll delve deeper into these strategies and more in the next part of our deep dive.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Welcome back to Deep Dive.
All right, so last time,
Last time.
we let you hanging on a little bit of a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
What happens when your character hits 0 hit points?
that's right. We were talking about those nail-biting moments
Yeah?
when your hero is on the brink of defeat.
Yeah, is it game over?
Don't worry, though. It's not always game over.
Okay, good.
In D&D, when your character reaches 0 hit points, they fall unconscious
Right?
and start making death saving throws.
Okay, think of it like your character's desperately clinging to life.
Exactly. At the start of each of their turns, the player rolls a d20.
Okay.
A 10 or higher is a success,
Mhm.
and they need 3 successes to stabilize.
Okay.
That means they're still unconscious,
Yeah.
but they're no longer in immediate danger of dying.
Okay, but if they get 3 failures,
Then that's when things get a little grim.
yeah,
Of course, there's always a chance that their allies can come to the rescue.
right, exactly. A well-placed healing spell
Right.
or a potion can bring a character back from the brink.
Absolutely. And even if you don't have any healing abilities,
Right.
you can still try to stabilize a dying character with a little first aid.
Yeah, think of it like applying a bandage.
Exactly.
Or using a healing kit. It's not as powerful as magic,
Right.
but it can be a lifesaver in a pinch.
Exactly. It can. And that brings us to a point we touched on earlier.
Okay.
Sometimes you might not want to kill your enemies outright.
Right.
Maybe your character has a code against killing, or perhaps they need to take prisoners for questioning.
Right.
In those cases, you can actually choose to just knock someone unconscious
Yeah.
instead of delivering a fatal blow.
Imagine your party's fighting a group of bandits and one of them surrenders.
Right.
Instead of finishing them off, you could knock them out and tie them up for later.
It adds a layer of moral complexity to the game
Yeah.
and can lead to some interesting role-playing opportunities.
For sure. Speaking of tactics,
Yeah.
let's talk about how you can use the environment to your advantage in combat.
Yes, the D&D rulebook emphasizes the importance of cover.
Yeah.
Think of it like using a wall or a tree trunk to shield yourself from enemy attacks.
When you're behind cover, you get a bonus to your armor class, making you harder to hit.
Exactly, and there are different degrees of cover,
All right.
ranging from half cover to 3/4 cover,
Yeah.
each providing a different level of protection.
Okay, and then there's total cover,
Right.
where you're completely concealed and impossible to target directly.
You're safe and sound.
So always be on the lookout for cover during a fight.
Oh, yeah.
It could mean the difference between life and death.
Absolutely. Now, what if you find yourself surrounded by enemies?
Oh.
That's when you need to be wary of flanking.
Flanking.
Flanking is when enemies are positioned on opposite sides of you.
Okay.
Putting you at a disadvantage makes sense, right? If you're surrounded, it's harder to defend yourself.
Yeah.
In D&D, being flanked usually gives your attackers advantage on their attack rolls,
Okay.
meaning they roll the d20 twice and take the higher result.
So try to avoid being flanked.
Right.
And if you see an opportunity to flank an enemy, take it.
Absolutely. It could give you a crucial edge in combat.
Speaking of advantages, let's talk about how those work in D&D.
Advantage and disadvantage are two core mechanics
Yeah.
that can really dramatically swing the odds in your favor or against you.
Okay, so advantage represents a favorable circumstance,
Right.
like having the high ground
Yeah.
or catching your opponent off guard.
When you have advantage, you get to roll the d20 twice
Okay.
and take the higher result, increasing your chances of success.
Disadvantage is the opposite. It
Yeah.
represents an unfavorable situation,
Right.
like being blinded or attacking a target that's moving erratically.
Exactly. With disadvantage, you roll the d20 twice and take the lower result,
Okay.
making it harder to succeed.
So always be mindful of what might give you advantage or disadvantage in a fight.
Yes, it could be the key to victory or defeat.
It really could be, but there's so much more to combat than just attacking and defending.
Absolutely. D&D gives you a wide range of actions that you can take on your turn,
Okay.
each with its own tactical implications.
We've talked about attacking, moving, taking cover,
Right.
but there's a whole world of other options to explore.
There are, for example, the already action allows you to prepare an action to be triggered later in the round,
Okay.
usually in response to something specific happening.
Imagine a wizard readying a fireball spell
Right.
to be unleashed the moment a group of enemies charges into range.
Exactly. Or a rogue readying an attack
Yeah.
to be triggered as soon as an enemy drops their guard.
It's a great way to add an element of surprise
It is?
and turn the tables on your opponents.
Absolutely. Another versatile action is use an object.
Okay.
This allows you to interact with your environment in creative ways.
Maybe you use a rope to swing across a chasm,
Right.
or a lantern to start a fire,
Yeah.
or even a bag of flour to create a blinding cloud of dust.
The possibilities are limited only by your imagination.
And your DM's willingness to let you try things out.
Absolutely. But remember,
Yeah.
D&D is a team game.
Right.
Combat is not just about individual heroics.
Right.
It's about working together to overcome challenges.
So how do we work together?
One way to support your allies is by using the help action.
Okay.
This gives your friend advantage on their next attack roll or ability check.
So you might distract an enemy,
Right.
giving your ally an opening to strike.
Exactly.
Or you might help them force open a heavy door or disarm a trap.
Teamwork is essential in D&D,
Right.
and combat is no exception.
Right. And that brings us to the end of part 2
Part 2.
of our deep dive into D&D combat. Welcome back to Deep Dive, where we're wrapping up
Yeah.
our exploration of D&D combat.
That's right. We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we really have.
From basic attacks
Mhm.
to tactical maneuvers and the thrill of rolling those critical hits.
Absolutely. But before you grab your dice and charge into battle,
Yeah,
there are a few more things you should know.
right. Let's talk about weapons.
Okay?
You might think a sword is a sword,
Right.
but in D&D, weapons have these unique properties that can dramatically change how you use them in combat.
Okay.
Some weapons are light,
Yeah?
making them easier to wield, perfect for quick attacks.
Right. Others are heavy,
Yeah.
requiring more strength,
For strength.
but packing a serious punch.
Yeah, and some weapons have the finesse property, meaning you can use your dexterity modifier instead of strength for attack and damage rolls.
So that's great for nimble characters like rogues or rangers
Exactly.
who rely on agility rather than brute force.
Right. It's all about finding the right weapon for your character's style.
Exactly. And don't forget about armor. Just because you can strap on a suit of plate mail doesn't mean you can fight effectively in it.
Oh, yeah. Wearing armor you're not proficient in.
Yeah.
Comes with some serious drawbacks.
Imagine a rogue trying to sneak around in heavy plate armor.
Right. Or a wizard struggling to cast spells while weighed down by metal.
Right. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You might have disadvantage on certain actions like stealth checks.
Right.
And spellcasters might find their magic disrupted.
It can happen. So when choosing your character's equipment, think about their strengths,
Yeah.
weaknesses, and how they'll be fighting.
It's all about finding the right balance
Yeah,
between protection and mobility.
absolutely. Now let's talk about spellcasting in combat.
Sure.
Spellcasters bring this unique dynamic to the battlefield.
Yeah.
But wielding magic in the heat of battle
Yeah.
requires finesse and a good dose of strategy.
Right. First off, casting a spell can leave you vulnerable.
Yeah,
Most spells require at least one action to cast,
right.
meaning you can't also move or take other actions on that turn.
And some spells require concentration,
Right.
meaning any distractions or damage could disrupt your spellcasting.
Think of it like carefully aiming a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
If someone bumps you,
Right.
you might miss your shot.
Exactly. So positioning is key for spellcasters.
Okay.
You want to be far enough away from the fray to avoid being easily hit, but close enough to target your enemies effectively.
And speaking of targeting,
Yeah.
remember that spells have areas of effect.
Right.
Some spells, like Magic Missile, target a single creature,
Yeah.
but others, like Fireball, can engulf multiple enemies in a fiery explosion.
Yeah. Whoosh.
You need to be mindful of your surroundings and make sure you're not accidentally catching your allies in the crossfire.
Yeah, friendly fire is a real hazard in D&D,
Right.
and it can quickly turn a victory into a disaster.
Yeah, so pay attention to where your allies are positioned
Yes.
and be careful with those area of effect spells.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, let's talk about some additional resources that can help you on your D&D journey.
Okay, the D&D Starter Set Rulebook's a great starting point,
It is.
but there's a wealth of information out there
Oh, yeah.
for players at all levels.
Right. The Player's Handbook is a must-have for any serious D&D player.
Yeah,
It delves deeper into the rules, character creation, and the various classes and races you can play.
and don't forget about online resources.
Yeah.
There are countless websites, forums, and communities
Oh, many.
dedicated to D&D,
Yeah.
where you can find tips, advice, and even connect with other players.
Absolutely. It's a great community.
And that's it for our deep dive into D&D combat. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have
But remember, this is just the beginning.
the beginning of your adventure.
D&D is a game of imagination, storytelling, and shared experiences.
It is.
Don't be afraid to experiment, get creative, and most importantly, have fun.
Have fun.
We hope this deep dive has given you the confidence to roll for initiative and embark on your own epic quests. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Deep Dive for more explorations into fascinating topics. Until next time, may your dice rolls be ever in your favor.
Good luck out there.